What is the biggest dating WTF you've experienced? A girl I had been seeing for a couple of weeks or so asked me to go with her to a funeral of some guy I didn't know. What I didn't expect was that the funeral was for her fiance. Got out of there real quick once I realized why everyone was shooting me glares the whole time. I was the side itch. My ex in HS asked me to shave every last hair on my body. Like everything except for my eyebrows. I refused, so she dumped me. She is now married to a guy with alopecia. No joke. Hey, I guess there's someone out there for everyone. 1. She was so wrapped up in her phone that she didn't notice I had moved over and started a conversation with some other guests. 2. Asked if she could bring a friend to feel safe. Completely understandable, and I was fine with it. Brought her best friend and her date. Both girls ignored us pretty much all night and we left without them. He turned out to be a pretty cool guy though and invited me to join for weekend football, where I made even more friends. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. I will try to respond to everyone over the rest of today. Guy in story number 2 is a total goddamn bro. Girl told me within 15 minutes of our first meeting that she was having sex with a married co-worker and her favorite part was seeing him cry in guilt after it was over. Holy shit. Not only doing that but bringing it up on a date 15 minutes in. This is the first comment that actually makes me mad. I once got catfished on Tinder. Nothing out of the ordinary. Right? Here's the catch. This person had me meet them and acted as if they were not a different person. One of the craziest experiences of my life. I had a guy ask me out on a date. And he suggested a Japanese restaurant I liked. After I ordered, the server asked him what he wanted. And he said he wasn't hungry. I asked him if he wanted to wait until he was hungry. But he said no. He just wanted to watch me eat. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But his expression said he wasn't joking. The sushi was good though. Edit. Because people were asking. I paid for my food at the end and he didn't offer. If he paid I would have felt crazy guilty rather than being weirded out. I went on a Tinder date with this one girl whose bio said something like, "You won't like me. I'm a disaster." Spoiler alert. She was right, but she was pretty attractive, so we went to get tea at a local hipster joint. She was obviously depressed. She told me about her hyper-competent other personality that she sometimes slips into and how her current life goal was to move several states away from her family and work at a gas station, even though she was a senior bio major. As the date was ending she freaked out, saying that she forgot her backpack in her last class but doesn't have a car to get back. Apparently her mom dropped her off and then went home. Half an hour away in the suburbs. So I took her to get her backpack. Then she told me that she needed me to drive her to her house because it was late and no bus was running out there. So I drove her half an hour back to her parents' house in the suburbs. On the way she told me that she actually has a boyfriend but sometimes likes to see what's out there and that this what our date was. Oh, and she also is pretty sure she's a les but likes the power involved in getting a guy to like her. For some reason we never saw each other again. Beehive girl. She had a Marge Simpson hairdo. About 18 inches high. She was an actor and couldn't understand why roles would demand she cut her hair. So she turned them down. I went on 3 dates with her just to hear her stories. She was totally oblivious she was the problem. It was like I was watching a soap opera or something. But she was serious. On a 3rd or 4th date I went back to his apartment to have a glass of wine. We had a great evening until near the end he said, "Wow, I can't believe you passed almost every test." Turns out he set up his apartment with small girlfriend tests. He made sure there was little to no toilet paper to see if I would change the roll, if I rinsed my dishes, if I turned off lights behind me, where I put my jacket and shoes. Needless to say there were no further dates. Had a Tinder date and the guy brought his GF and asked for a threesome without saying a word about it in advance. I gotta wonder how many times he's tried that. And what the success rate is. I was 17. My boyfriend was 20 or 21. We were out to dinner at a fancy place with his parents. He loudly turned to me and said, "By the way, since you won't sleep with me, I'm ducking other girls," with his parents inches away. That dinner became incredibly awkward after that. I was a virgin and wasn't ready yet. In my JC days, had a girl invite me over for a study date. Her dad was home and we actually studied at the kitchen table. Dad seemed cool from the little bit of conversation we had. Aside from a 7-11 run for snacks and cigs, her dad was 10 feet away from us the whole time. I thought the date went well. We talked more than we studied, made tentative plans to see a movie. Couple days later I text her, "What's your weekend looking like so we can check out a flick, grab some dinner?" She replies back, "It's not going to work, she wants someone more forceful." I was like, what? Apparently her running to her bedroom a few times for things she forgot was her hint to me I was supposed to follow. And pounce, I guess. I once went on a date where I probably said like 5 words. Girl just talked for over an hour and a half. Without ever including me in the conversation. Just reminisced. Complained. And bragged about her life for over 90 minuets straight. I was so taken aback that I just kind of drove home wondering if that experience was real or not. Not a date, but this reminds me of one of my girlfriend's friends. She kept telling my GF how she wanted to meet me and all that. Had a dinner. Nor a single question was asked by her. It was all about her and her mother and a weird racist tangent about how she, a white woman, couldn't see Black Panther in her home state of North Carolina for fear of being jumped and mugged by the black people in attendance. I've been on and off the dating app life for a couple of years now. I just got my first big boy job and moved to a new area. I matched with this cute girl who was a junior in college nearby. We had a nice first date. Got coffee and walked around. We set plans to grab lunch that weekend. During lunch we decided to go on an impromptu hike. I drove us to my house to grab some water, snacks, change clothes, and we had a nice hike. Everything was going pretty darn well. We texted and kept up throughout the week. That Friday I was at a friend's house. We had a few drinks. So I didn't feel comfortable driving back home. He didn't have an Android charger and my phone was dying, so I sent a courtesy text to her to let her know I was going to be out of commission for a while. The next morning, I get home and charge in my phone. After a few seconds I get a slew of text messages. Around 50. All from her. It was a spiral into insanity. At first she told me to go have fun and have a good night. Then it went from that to, "Hey, are you free to, why aren't you talking to me?" And near the latter she mentioned she drove by my house and didn't see my car. She accused me of sleeping around. Basically any and every insecurity got projected onto me within a couple of hours, all while I was asleep. I called it off immediately. She probably had some deeper issues and I hope she has gotten help, is happy. It was just the transition from a few nice dates to that night that really made me take step back and go, what the actual duck. Showed up for my date with Ashley, who I'd been chatting with back and forth online. This was 10 years ago. Sat down at bar. Someone comes and sits down next to me and says, "Hi, I'm Ashley." Looked at photo of what I assumed was Ashley and her ex-boyfriend and realized the person sitting across from me was the ex-boyfriend in the photo. And that is how, as a straight man, I showed up for a date with a man. After I somehow politely told the guy he was misleading and that he knew I thought she was the girl in picture and what he was doing was deceitful and a good way to get his ass kicked. He had the gall to respond that, "It's okay. We can go after chicks together and if we strike out we can both still have a good time." That is when I told him to go himself and left. TLDR. Accidentally showed up for a date with a dude. This was while I was in the Marines. I met up with this girl from POF. All seemed well from our chats and texting, so we decided to meet up for a date in Palm Springs. Nothing out there yet. I get there to find out she has kids, which she brought along but never told me about even having kids whatsoever, and without missing a beat, she asks me right there to have a contract marriage. I spit my drink out a sap while she tried to explain how it would benefit the both of us. I just looked at her with a stern look. Told her to get her shit together. told her to lose my number, and walked the hell out. I had been dating this guy for about a month, and I knew he was pretty freshly out of another relationship. We were having beers on a patio at a tap house nearby, and his phone rings and he answers it and proceeds to talk to who I realized was his ex. They were arguing and talking about their breakup, all while he was still sitting at the table with me. After about an hour and a few beers later, a guy at the table next to me gave me kind of a nod to join his table. I did. We talked about what an asshole the other guy was being. We spent the next couple hours chatting. Douchebag left when his phone call was over, and my new friend and I ended up dating for a year and we're still friends to this day. She had previously told me how irresponsible her sister was. Her sister had received a positive result for herpes. Sister thought it meant she was clean and didn't have it. I don't get the logic either. A few weeks later, we had been seeing each other pretty casually. She mentioned that her sister wanted to swap. Yeah? No thanks. Another Tinder story for the pile. Met a girl on Tinder who was super into Bob's Burgers and we hit it off on other things we both enjoyed. First 2 dates we went out to eat and watch a movie. Third date she came over to my place and we ordered pizza and watched Bob's Burgers. Things were going alright until I started getting tired and started the time to use my force powers to get this person to leave so I can sleep portion of the night. I had no expectations of her staying the night and didn't try to push towards it at all, but she started getting very handsy and one thing led to another and she was giving me head. It was pretty mediocre but I could tell she wasn't that into it and was literally just doing it so I wouldn't have her leave. She was watching the ducking show through her hair and after a few minutes of conversation told me she was only dating me to watch this damn show cause her ex cut her off his Netflix. Went on a Tinder date with a guy. Just out to local diner for breakfast. He took 2 phone calls during our first 10 minutes there. Bad start. After that, he kept making thinly veiled sexual innuendos. Dude, it's 9 AM. And talked incessantly about how incredible it was to be an entrepreneur. Hill me. I'm pretty sure the only time he asked me about myself was to ask who handles my band's social media and website. Bruh. Are you seriously networking right now? When I informed him that I did it all myself, including coding our website, he stared at me incredulously and asked me a bunch of follow-up questions, essentially testing me. By now, I was just stuffing my face with pancakes waiting for it to end. At one point, I was trying to find common ground by talking about music, and he actually said to me, I can never enjoy concerts or theater. I always want to be the one on the stage. Yeah, no? Yikes. End of the date finally arrives. And what do you know? He forgot his wallet and asked to Venmo me for breakfast. It was $20. So normally I just pay and tell him to forget it. But this guy was such a douche I decided I would take him up on the offer. I felt a little better at least getting a free breakfast out of it. I stopped using Tinder for a bit after that. I was very new to the city and ended up setting up a date with a girl off Tinder. I spent a lot of time looking into cool bars and suggested a bunch to her. But she ended up really wanting to go to a certain bar. Like would not take no for an answer. I looked it up. It looked okay. Nothing really that special. I figured she had some sort of thing with the people who worked there where she could escape if the date went bad. Fast forward to the date. It's going really well. She's absolutely gorgeous and the conversation is really easy. I bring up the choice of the bar and why she was so adamant on this one. She said her ex-BF works here. That throws me off. But I figured they broke up a while ago and now are just friends. So I question further asking how long ago they broke up and she tells me 2 weeks ago. And that he is currently our bartender. I look over at the bar. And this massive 280-pound guy is giving me the biggest death stare. I was wondering all night why he was being a big dick to me. Now I understood. Got out of there pretty quickly after that. I've had several. Honestly, I'm beginning to think I attract the weird ones. 1. A girl showed up pregnant. Like, about to burst. I'm pretty sure the fetus attempted to shake my hand. At no point during the pre-date talks did she tell me she was preggo. I immediately got up and left. 2. A smoking hot redhead went out with me and spent the entire time on her phone. We maybe said 2 sentences to each other. I figured she was disappointed in how I looked, acted, etc. So I counted it as a loss and left. Next day, she texted me asking when we could meet again. I told her no. 3. A girl showed up to our date visibly high on some kind of downer. Maybe pills? She nodded off at our table. 4. A girl got pissed drunk on our second date. Started an argument with me. Threw her drink in my face. Called me the N-word, I'm white, and demanded that I drive her home. When I told her to take an Uber, she told me she didn't have enough money to afford one. I paid for it. I went on a very boring date with a very dull, not talkative girl. I tried every couple of minutes to initiate any conversation until I honestly ran dry of something or anything to talk about and decided that it really isn't going to work, so I sat in silence while I finished my drink with complete intention of saying goodbye once I'd finished. 2 sips left and she said something. I kid you not, these were her words. "So are you going to kiss me at the end of this?" I was in shock and didn't know what to say. She then proceeded to cry and get up saying, "I knew I was ugly," and walked away. I had a girl set a whole thing up where she was straddling me in panties only to ask to lick my eye. And she added she had a contact kit and stuff, so it was safe. So she made a plan to lure me to her place, seduce me, all with the end goal of licking my ducking eyeball. She was hot too. Being an idiot and in high school, I left. I wish I'd banged you, freaky lady. This guy went on and on about how he hated promiscuity and whores. Later on that night, he tried to go up my shirt and touch my breasts. I stopped him and said, "I thought you hated promiscuity." Some guy took my glasses, ran out of the restaurant with them. I got a text like 15 minutes later of him taking a selfie in them at his place. He said if I wanted them back I would have to come over to his. A year ago I met up with a girl I met on a dating site. We went out for coffee and had a good talk about movies and video games. Then everything got weird when she asked if she could read me some of her poetry about her ex-boyfriend cheating on her. She proceeded to sob in public in the middle of the poem, and wouldn't stop until she was finished with her very long poem despite being a blubbering, sniffling mess. There was no second date. I had a date suggest we meet up for drinks. He showed up about 10 minutes late to Sheets to the Wind. He orders another whiskey and then for about 20 minutes tried to carry on conversation without acknowledging the fact he was clearly incredibly drunk. I casually asked if he drank beforehand and he told me he had a bunch of whiskey beforehand in preparation for the date to calm his nerves. Okay, I get it. Then he continues to explain that he's only drunk because I'm pretty and that he was so eager to make a good impression he decided to drink. And then he puked. Needless to say, the whiskey did not make a good first impression.